As you know, since February, the United States has imposed tariffs on 70% of total EU trade with the United States. The scale and the scope of these measures is unprecedented. So our line has to be very clear. We will be firm. We do prefer a negotiated solution. This is why we're working closely with the US administration to get an agreement. And I had a good exchange with President Trump earlier this week to help move things forward. We're looking for a reliable framework from which we can keep building our common trade. So the message is clear. We stick to our principles. We defend our interests. We continue the work in good faith. And we get ready for all scenarios. We will, of course, keep this House informed. Honourable members, the reason why we're working day and night to find a solution is because we believe tariffs are bad for business. I see very clearly the war still rages on. The threat from...
Thank you very much.
Virginie, ta main est toujours levée. Tu as une question de follow-up?
The United States has moved its deadline for finalising deals with partner countries to the 1st of August. However, we aim to reach a deal before then, potentially even in the coming days. We have shown our readiness to reach an agreement in principle, and the Commission has consulted closely with our Member States and industry to ensure that there is a high degree of cohesion in our overall EU approach. We count on the US continuing to engage in this sense. Reaching a deal now depends on the willingness to find an outcome that is acceptable to both sides.
Hello, Olaf, sorry, so just...
I agree that there is some confusion concerning what precisely is happening in this situation, but I can say, I think with some justification, that none of that confusion is coming from our side. And therefore, I repeat that from the European Union perspective, we are fully committed to getting an agreement in principle over the line with the US as quickly as possible, ideally in the coming days.
Changer de sujet. Raise your hand if you have any other questions.
Last week we had 4 days of intense negotiations at technical and political level, and I have been in constant contact with my US counterparts. Negotiations continue remotely every single day. The discussions are constructive. We have engaged on key elements such as tariffs, non-tariff barriers, economic security, strategic purchases, mutual investment, etc. We have made good progress on the text of the joint statement or agreement in principle, and I hope we can soon finalise our work. And you probably know me by now. Crucially, while other nations faced increased tariffs from the United States as a result of the letters that President Trump sent out on Monday, our negotiations have spared the EU from facing higher tariffs. An extension until August 1st of the status quo has been announced, giving us additional space to reach a satisfactory conclusion. While this time allows us to continue refining our work, as I said, I hope to reach a satisfactory results, potentially even in the coming days. They've been built over the decades as a transatlantic supply chains. The agreement in principle we are striving to finalise is not the end, but rather the start of the new beginning. It would provide a framework upon which we can continue to build, defining the exact parameters of the later agreement. In other words, I see it as a foundational framework that paves the way for future fully-fledged EU-US trade agreement. We have approached this task with a laser focus, balancing the demands of the US with our own priorities and ensuring that our regulatory autonomy remains intact. But let me be clear, while we remain committed to achieving a satisfactory deal, we need to acknowledge a certain degree of rebalancing will remain. Every trade deal we do, it's at the sacrifice of our farmers because it's not... Surely our perceptions and viewpoints differ, but we remain committed to our goal, which is to restore predictability, providing businesses, workers and consumers the relief they seek and deserve against unwanted and damaging escalation. In protecting the integrity of our regulatory framework, we have drawn our red lines firmly. Our legislation and regulatory framework remains non-negotiable, and the Commission will continue to protect the EU's regulatory autonomy. I can assure you, honourable members, that nothing in our potential joint statements affects the autonomy I was just referring to. At the same time, we continue preparing for any eventuality. Next ministerial in Cameroon in the spring of 2026 would be absolutely